Welcome back. Take a look at the markets. They were down as much as 400 just a little while ago, now down 361. Trade war fears are on the rise, and some of America's top CEOs are talking President Trump at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Just moments ago, with President Trump missing from the big event, former Secretary of State John Kerry weighed in. Let's take a listen.
If you had President Trump sitting right opposite you, what would your message to him be?
I can't play that. I would. But I know that, you see, because he doesn't take any of this seriously. He doesn't have an ability to have that kind of conversation.
So what would you say to him to get it serious? What would your message be?
Resign.
Okay.
Davos is where we find MSNBC's Velshi and Rhule, who are all dressed up against the cold. It's good to see you both. So I wonder,
you too, Chris.
I know it just happened, but if there's been any reaction to Secretary Kerry's comments, do they reflect the mood there? If not the message of resign, are you hearing concern?
Yeah. So I'll tell you the way it works around here. Last year, when Trump and administration officials were all here, they sort of sucked all the oxygen out of the room. So where Davos participants don't tend to sort of favor the Trump administration's view of the world, everybody was very accommodating of the fact that the President of the United States was here. Now he's not, and nobody from the administration is, and nobody from the UK administration, nobody from the French administration is. So now you hear what people around here usually say. These are globalists, right? If there are globalists in the world, they're here at Davos. These are people who believe in more trade and believe in sort of multilateral stuff. So,
but they acknowledge that globalism as it stands and capitalism as it stands aren't working for everyone.
Right.
So a real big theme here has been the rise of populism and nationalism, not just in the United States, but around the world. But that is obviously an idea that the president identifies with very much, and people here, not so much.
That's exactly right. So, for instance, Bill Gates was just interviewed not very long ago, and someone, talked about critics of the current capitalist world system and how it can be adjusted. And his response was, well, if people like communism, they can try that. So, that's the problem, that they really are clear here that there's something wrong in the world. As for John Kerry, he's gone from here. It's nighttime here, and most folks are off at private dinner, so we haven't caught up to him. But if we do, we'll ask that question of him. What Stephanie did do is she caught up with a bunch of sort of very important CEOs who operate all around the world and got their take on what's going on in the United States.
I did, and overwhelmingly, I heard this disappointment business, because here's the thing. If you're a CEO, even if you don't like what's going on in the world, you must be pragmatic. You must play ball. So it is so foreign to them to watch a government truly in shutdown. Take a listen to what I would say a wide range of. I spoke to Andrew Liveris, former CEO of Dow Chemical, who was an informal advisor to President Trump, still a supporter. I spoke to Arne Sorensen, CEO of Marriott, whose business is down in Washington. 20% since the shutdown began, mostly because of all the museums are closed, tourists aren't coming. And I spoke to the president of Microsoft, who's most concerned that while all these conversations are being had around artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and the risks around them, the United States and our delegation doesn't have a seat at the table. Take a look.
We're a little less welcoming in the United States, or perceived to be a little less welcoming. And we should be careful about that, because travel to the United States is economic growth in the United States, it's jobs in the United States, and it's positive perspective about the United States.
Do you try in whatever capacity you can to impress this idea upon our government?
Absolutely, yeah. I've used exactly these words with the president.
I think the world needs American leadership. When we are thinking about problems like cybersecurity, for example, and nation-state attacks on other countries, this is a problem that begs for American leadership. There's no way that a company can fill in a gap that's created by a government. I hope we will see more American leadership as we look to the future.
I am concerned. I think the world of multilateralism is disappearing, and we're becoming nationalist, and the United States is leading the charge. The worker and the people that elected the current administration needs a voice, and the administration feels that they have to be that voice. So putting priority to the American worker is what this entire thrust is about. I support the administration in the intent to create fairness. I don't particularly support the instruments being used, like tariffs. That's the absolute wrong way to go.
Once the soundbite ends, 1 minute.
All right, so those were that was some of the sentiment that was going on here. One of the interesting things that happens every year at Davos is Oxfam releases a report about how much money the richest people in the world have versus the bottom half. That number of rich people is now 26. 26 people, according to Oxfam, control the same wealth as the bottom half of all humanity, 3.5 billion people. I remember a couple years ago it was 80. It's getting smaller and smaller.
So when you ask, where is this unrest and this uprising come from, it's numbers like that. And at least for the last 6, 7, 8 years in Davos, a huge theme has been income inequality.
Right.
And now, as the number grows smaller, the amount of billionaires who have accumulated all that wealth, and so many at the bottom are suffering, people are saying it's time to do something. We're hearing some. I mean, Microsoft has announced a $500 million investment in housing in the Seattle area. Why? Because they finally recognize school teachers and firefighters can't afford to live there. Mark Benioff of Salesforce today said San Francisco is a canary in the coal mine. How can you have the richest tech superstars and a homeless crisis?
Yeah, and that's sort of the discussion. The irony is not lost on us that some of those 26 people are probably here. Back to you, Chris.
Velshi, Stephanie Rhule live in Davos, Switzerland. Thank you very much for that and for all those interviews. Coming up,